When it comes to money, we all like to think we're the ones in the driver's seat, right? Making these super logical, calculated decisions. But the truth is, a lot of the time, our financial choices are being pushed and pulled by these powerful forces we don't even see. And it all starts with a question you've probably asked yourself before. I mean, think about it. You've had a really tough week at work, and suddenly that gadget you've been eyeing online, it just seems like the perfect little pick-me-up. That's not a coincidence, right? It's classic emotional spending. Our feelings, whether we're stressed or even super happy, can totally hijack our wallets. Or what about this one? Paying off debt. Why does it feel like such an impossible uphill battle sometimes? You know the math, you've got the plan all laid out, but just sticking to it feels exhausting. That feeling of pushing a giant boulder up a hill, it isn't just in your head. There's a real psychological reason for it, and it's got way more to do with our need for motivation than with simple interest rates. So, what's the deal? Well, it all comes down to this. The answer isn't in your spreadsheet, it's in your brain. Our relationship with money is deeply, deeply psychological. If we really want to master our finances, we have to look past the numbers and start to understand the hidden biases and mental shortcuts that are actually calling the shots. Okay, so let's dive into our brain on money. For the longest time, traditional economic theories basically treated us like robots. These perfectly rational beings who always make the best possible choice. But then behavioral economics came along and showed us a much different picture, one that's a whole lot more human and, frankly, a lot messier. This brings us to a huge idea called bounded rationality from a Nobel Prize winner named Herbert Simon. He basically said, look, we're not perfect. Instead of making the perfect choice, we do something called satisficing. We make decisions that are just good enough. Think about it. You don't analyze every single stock in the market, right? No, you pick one that seems pretty decent. Our brains have limits, and that simple fact shapes every single financial move we make. And this diagram, it lays it all out perfectly. Just look at what's feeding into our decisions on the left. You've got our own personal attitudes about money, then there's social pressure, what our friends and family are doing, and finally, how much control we feel like we have. All of that stuff combines to form our intention, which then directly drives what we actually do with our money. It's this powerful loop that's constantly running in the background. All right, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's meet the villains of your wallet, the specific psychological glitches that can really mess with our money. These are called cognitive biases, and they're basically these built-in patterns of thinking that lead us away from making perfectly rational choices. And guess what? They affect every single one of us. First up is a huge one, loss aversion. This is the reason why the pain of losing something feels about twice as bad as the pleasure of gaining the exact same thing. It explains why we might cling to a losing stock for way, way too long, just hoping it'll bounce back. That fear of making the loss real is just so much more powerful than the idea of taking that money and putting it into a winner. It makes us play it way too safe. And this isn't just a hunch. This is from the groundbreaking work of Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Let this sink in for a second. Losing $100 hurts about twice as much as finding $100 feels good. That imbalance has massive, massive implications for how we think about risk. Okay, next up is overconfidence. This is that little voice in your head that whispers, I got this, I can totally beat the market. And hey, confidence is a good thing, but overconfidence, that's what can lead us to take on way too much risk or trade way too often because we think we're smarter than everyone else. And there's hard data to prove it. A huge study by Barber and Odine found that the most overconfident investors, they traded a whopping 45% more often than their peers. And all that extra buying and selling, it just racks up fees and usually leads to bad timing. The end result is almost always lower returns. It's a classic case of our ego getting in the way of our profits. And our third villain, herd behavior. Have you ever felt that intense fear of missing out? FOMO? Well, that's herd behavior in a nutshell. When we see everyone else rushing to buy some hot new stock or a cryptocurrency, our gut instinct is to jump in and follow the crowd. The problem is, this is what inflates market bubbles, and it leads to huge crashes when the herd suddenly decides to run in the other direction. Okay, so now that we've met these biases, let's see how they actually play out in a real-world situation that a lot of us deal with, paying off debt. This is where that battle between cold, hard logic and our powerful emotions really heats up. So let's set the scene with a pretty common scenario. You've got 3 different debts, a credit card, a car loan, and a student loan. Each one has a different balance and, importantly, a different interest rate. The credit card has that nasty high interest rate, but the car loan has the smallest balance. So where do you even begin? Well, this leads us to two classic strategies. First, you have the debt avalanche. This is the pure math choice. You attack that high-interest credit card first, which saves you the most money in the long run. But then there's the debt snowball. This one's all about psychology. You go after the smallest balance, the car loan, first. Why? To get a quick win. It feels good and it builds momentum. See, the best method isn't always the one that's best on paper. It's the one you'll actually stick with. It's all about knowing yourself. Are you motivated by math or are you motivated by momentum? All right, so once you've got a plan to tackle your debt, the next big step is building a really strong financial foundation. And a massive piece of that puzzle is your credit score. You got to stop thinking of it as just some number. It's really the official story of your financial habits. So let's look under the hood. This is the blueprint for a FICO score, which is the one most lenders use. And just look at those two biggest slices: payment history at 35% and amounts owed at 30%. Together, that's 65%, almost 2/3 of your entire score. That tells you exactly where you need to focus all your energy. So based on that pie chart, the path to a better score is actually pretty straightforward. First, and this is non-negotiable, pay your bills on time every single time. Second, keep your credit utilization, that's just your balances divided by your total credit limits, below 30%. And finally, don't close your old credit cards and only apply for new credit when you really need to. These are simple habits, but they have a huge impact on that number. Okay, for our last section, let's tackle the single biggest myth out there, the one that really shapes your whole financial personality, because it taps right into our natural tendency to put things off. So, what's the most dangerous financial myth? It's this simple sentence: I have plenty of time to save for retirement. Oh man, we've all heard it. Maybe we've even said it ourselves. But this one belief, this one little thought, can be the difference between a comfortable retirement and a really stressful one. And it's all because it completely ignores the most powerful force in all of finance. And this chart right here shows that force in all its glory, the magic of compounding. Just look at these numbers. It's incredible. If you start investing a set amount every month at age 25, you end up with more than 3 times the money as someone who starts with the exact same monthly investment just 10 years later at 35. That 1 decade of lost time makes a massive difference. It proves that time, not timing the market, is your single greatest option. And this quote from Charles A. Jaffe just wraps it all up perfectly. It's not your salary that makes you rich, it's your spending habits. Financial success isn't just for people with huge incomes. It's all about behavior, it's about discipline, and it's about understanding the psychology that's driving your decisions every single day. So I want you to think about it. What's your financial personality? Are you a super cautious saver, maybe driven by that loss aversion we talked about? Are you an aggressive investor, maybe fueled by a little bit of overconfidence? Or do you find yourself just following the herd sometimes? Really understanding these deep down tendencies, that's the key. Because here's the thing, once you know the psychological script you've been following, you can finally start to rewrite it. You can build systems, right? You can automate your savings, you can pick the debt strategy that actually fits your brain, and you can start to work with your psychology instead of constantly fighting against it. And that is how you truly begin to master your money mind.